Welcome to Take It Up with Jessica Lee. My guest today is Luan Lam from Harness. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
You are the VP of Talent.
Yes.
Tell us, what does that mean?
Yeah, so the VP of Talent, I would say the world of HR, if you will, has evolved over time. Talent is what it's called today, or the people function, if you will. And then within that, there are two groups, if you will, the talent acquisition team and the talent management.
Okay.
So I run both.
Acquisition and management. So
yes.
Get the right talent into the company and then retain them and keep them and grow them.
Nurture and grow
them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I know it's a big challenge for a lot of tech companies,
yes.
recruiting for engineering especially.
Correct. Especially in the Bay Area.
Yes. You actually are now at Harness, but right before that, you were at AppDynamics, and you scaled that team. You talk about the culture, and I would like to discuss how do you build a culture that's a high-performing culture?
That's a great question. So before going into that, let me kind of just give you a quick overview of kind of my background. I came to AppDynamics when it was about 150 employees and helped scale that organization to almost 2,000 people before I left with the successful exit of $3.7 billion into Cisco. So Jyoti founded Harness, which is a continuous delivery service as a platform that uses machine learning to actually simplify the whole entire process of delivering code from artifact into production in real time, quickly, safely, securely, and repeatedly.
And then it rolls back if there's an issue?
Correct. If there's an issue, and this is all done in real time.
Okay.
So organizations are not afraid of pushing out deployments in real time and not afraid of being something breaking in between. Right? So with that said, going back to your question about growing a company and the culture and how important it is. Just kind of seeing how AppDynamics scaled, one of the important ingredients was how do we retain the culture that we had, right? So that comes with really having 3 successful storytelling chapters, if you will. First is kind of the market story, right? Like what market are you addressing, right? The product story. Like technology, how does it speak to say, a developer wanted to come to your company? And last would be the culture piece, right? How do you actually foster an environment that is diverse and people want to belong to and that people feel proud of being there? And we did just that at AppDynamics, and we're also building that at Harness as well.
And when you joined AppDynamics, was 150 people, and then you scaled it to 2,000.
Almost 2,000 before I left.
Very quickly,
So about the less than 5 years I was there, we very aggressive growth, and the whole entire time. One of the last years I was there, we hired over 600 people in 1 year.
There has to be a process, a way to do this at scale. Like, how do you attract people? How do you manage all of that? How do you, there has to be a tool or something. Did you have a tool or something?
Yeah, we do. So I would say that I would coin the term untraditional TA team at AppDynamics, if you will, and we are doing that Harness as well, was the fact that I think we finally cracked the code in recruiting. We started running it like a sales organization. If you think about a sales organization where you have a number of reps responsible a number of revenue, right? So that the math just doesn't lie. You have to have 10 reps if you want $30 million in revenue. The same way, a number of recruiters to a number of hires in any given quarter, any given year. And that's the math that we did. But beyond that, what we did was we utilized tools and systems to automate a lot of our processes, right? In between, for example, we deployed a candidate nurturing system called Outreach to really kind of create a live database where we touch individuals who were not ready to make the move, but we kept them in our process. And we set pings every quarter also to get a ping from us and from my team.
Nurturing. That's like a marketing campaign.
It's a marketing campaign. It's a drip campaign. That's exactly what it is. So if you think about it, why would you not utilize that for your internal recruiting function?
So what is the ratio? If you want to bring in one engineer, how many candidates do you have to canvass and bring?
Right. Good question, and this is one of the things that I taught my team all the time, is not all recruiters are created equally.
Okay.
So it all depends on who you are as a recruiter, and I always asked all of my team members to ask themselves who they are as recruiters. For example, it only takes one person, right, to make that one hire, right? However, there are many factors involved, whether or not the candidate is ready to make the move, whether or not he or she is involved with 3 or 4 other companies that he or she is interviewing with. So with that said, we actually started doing conversion rates, just like in the sales process. Starts with a funnel. If you need to make $1 million, right, as a revenue target for that quarter, how much do you have to have in the pipeline in terms of customers equates to the potential dollar amount to net you that $1 million.
Okay.
We adopted the same process.
Okay.
So we actually figured out at a minimum, if a recruiter needs to make a hire for the month, especially in engineering, he or she should have about 7 qualified
candidates,
screened candidates in the pipeline. Because if you think about the drop-off rate at every stage of the process, let's just assume if you have, say, 8 candidates, and the drop-off rate is 25% from, submitting that person, those candidates onto a phone screen, you might drop from 8 to 6.
Okay.
And let's say after the phone screen process, onto an on-site, that might be a 50% drop-off rate. So now you're down to 4. So another 50% drop-off rate would be 2 to the offer stage. And perhaps another 50% for someone to accept an offer.
Okay.
Right? So again, I always told all my recruiters, ask yourself, how do you work? Right? It all depends. It doesn't take 8 sometimes or 7 sometimes. It might take just 1, but you have to know who you are as a recruiter in managing your numbers. So I think we also allowed our team members to be creative and the freedom for them to work their numbers accordingly to how they work as well.
Now, it's very salesy, what you're saying, and that's because, did you come from a sales background at all?
Interestingly enough, funny that you asked, yes, at the crash in 2009, I was at a couple of startups. I actually was at a company called SnapLogic and also a company called Jamin, founded by Gaurav Dhillon, both founded by Gaurav Dhillon, who founded Informatica and took the company public. In 2009, I actually did sell software for about a year. I have to tell you, probably the hardest job I've ever had in my whole entire career. It was tough to try to pry $2 out of someone's hand, left alone, right, a couple $100,000.
But that's where you learn about the funnel, the leads, the conversion, and then you apply that to HR now.
Right. And beyond that is the marketing piece, which we touched on earlier, is the drip campaign.
Yes.
But even beyond that is how do you create the messaging, right? So recruiting is an art of selling.
Yes.
How do you sell and how do you tell that story? Like the company story, the people story, the culture story is important. So I focus a lot on branding as well. Okay,
that's great. So right now at Harness, what is the employee size?
Yeah, so we actually have tripled the size of the company since I've been there. I've been there now for about going on 9 months with the company, and we have taken the company from about 30-something of us to almost 100 today.
And you have customers and things are going very well, and you're looking to scale that to X number of employees.
Yes.
Kind of similar journey to
very similar journey. The only difference is we're going a lot faster than we were at AppDynamics. Series A, like I said, we're already at 100 people still in Series A today. We came out the first year of selling with quite a number of really good paid customers, and we are now operating out of 5 different locations. Headquarters is in San Francisco. We stood up our development center in Bangalore, India. We stood up our UK division 2 quarters ago. We established our APAC entity just last month, and now we are also launching an office in Dallas, Texas.
Besides Harness, you're very busy. You are also involved in the unusual ventures
Yes.
Which is a VC fund, right?
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Unusual Ventures was co-founded by John Baronis, who came out from Lightspeed, and Jyoti Bansal himself. So we raised about $160 million for that fund, and our goal is to fund, do seed funding, early stage, very early stage, seed funding. And the reason why the Unusual name was coined is we are doing things a little unusually at the firm. For example, we have committed ourselves to actually donating a percentage of the profit that we get at the end of the day to nonprofits across the U.S. And hospitals as well, and also Black colleges. We are very, very dedicated to the whole social corporate responsibility. Number one. Number two, the internal model of the firm is very different. We are definitely dedicated to enabling our portfolio companies to be successful. For example, on my side of the house and how I get involved is I actually get involved with portfolio companies that we have funded earlier on to really show them how to capture the talent market. Right? To tell that story, the company story, the product story, the people culture story. And also not only that, but we go in and actually help them build out the TA foundation from the ground up. So as they continue to scale and grow, they already have the infrastructure in-house to go and attract, not only attract, but be able to hire the right talent.
Talk about LinkedIn a bit, because I know that's like the place now for professionals to have their career on there, and a lot of people go there to look for talent. Your thoughts on LinkedIn and how it has changed the HR business?
Absolutely, and I think for a lot of us who started our career before LinkedIn, we were known as headhunters, right? I mean, you really have to go on and headhunt people for jobs. So when LinkedIn came around, it was really, it was the greatest technology ever invented for people in my career. However, with that said, I think over the years, I think people became a little complacent about relying on just LinkedIn as their one tool to go to. I actually am a believer in terms of going out and do things the traditional way as well, right? Having that connection, building that network, keeping them in what I call a live database, kind of keep a mental check of all the people that you have in play. Even if they're not ready today, just like a drip campaign that we normally would do, is to keep them in the network, whether it's LinkedIn or not LinkedIn, so that once we have funded a company that we quickly would be able to assess who would be a right fit for those outfits.
I see. So you have all of these communications going on with people who are currently happy working wherever they are, but their strengths, and whenever there's a funding for a new startup, you might want to match them up.
Absolutely. And it's having that conversation up front and also kind of being able to keep them in a network, right? And I think our firm, the Unusual Ventures, speaks to a lot of people in terms of our commitment to give back, right? Not a lot of firms can say that, but right off the bat, we go onto our website. That is something that we proudly, declare that we want to help nonprofit organizations, hospitals, and Black colleges. We are encouraging people to actually step up and take, more responsibility.
Do good.
Yeah, right? To do good. Yeah.
So I want to ask you about diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
Being in a VP of talent, you can make a big impact. So how are you doing on the diversity and inclusion front?
Good question. So that topic is so near and dear to my heart. I remember trying to stand up the Women in Technology, which we call WIT, WIT, at AppDynamics about 30 days into my employment there, and I'm not sure if everybody was behind it. Not to say that they weren't behind the whole concept of having a diversity and inclusion and belonging initiative. It was because we might be too early in the game for that. And also, I came in at a very critical time when I needed to scale the company from 150 to 300 in 9 months. So it was a big task, and trying to build infrastructure while I was doing that and building my own entire team from the ground up. So it was really tabling the different initiatives, but that initiative was so important to me, and I knew it was important to the organization as well, so I pushed for it. So we stood that up, and probably AppDynamics is known for having a really, really well-run and robust women in technology program, and that's just one of them. Right. So when we talk about diversity and D&I and belonging, we're not just talking about just women, right? Yes. Obviously, that's one part of it.
Right.
Other groups that we should be also thinking about, whether it's the Hispanics, MBA, right, group, or other groups as well. Veterans, for example, is a good, but also think about diversity of thought as well, right? How do you make sure that you have a diverse group of individuals that would come to the table with different opinions, right, to scale and propel the company forward?
Right.
Now, but my take usually on diversity and inclusion when it comes to hiring is that our job is to fill the pipeline with a diverse group of talent and make the best person win.
Yes.
We should not make allowances for someone to be within the company because of certain factors, right? The person with the most technical fit and cultural fit should always win.
But how do you make sure there's no unconscious biases in the decision making when you have men making the decision?
Very, very good question. So we put our managers through the unbiased training. Okay. Right, and I think people don't realize that they have biases and until they actually go through the training and understanding, what they are. What they are closed to, right? Closed in terms of like their minds to. So that exercise actually helps open them up to a new world of really evaluating candidates.
Beyond just diversity and inclusion, the area that I think needs discussion is pay equality.
Yes.
If someone feels like, I might not be paid equally, what should they do?
They shouldn't. Well, first of all, as a talent leader or as a talent and professional, your job is to make sure that doesn't happen. And I get that it does still happen. So one of the things that for us, example at Harness, is we have a role, we have identified what we are looking for, we set the amount or the budget for that, and that usually is done with the market. Right, analysis of what we're paying for, and it doesn't matter if it's male or female who gets that job. It's the same. It's the same budget that we're paying for. Okay. Right. So that's number one. I think it starts with really the TA team at any given company to put their foot down and go, okay, wait. So we budgeted this amount, but because John Doe is now coming in, we're giving him 10K more. That's not the right move. Right. So it starts with that. It starts with educating the TA team internally how to do things right. It starts with the TA team having a voice to voice that when they see something is not right, and to escalate that and make sure that people are course corrected so everyone is on the same track.
And then do you do some kind of survey company-wide and make sure that those metrics actually stay as you intend them to, or do they shift because people ask for promotions?
Well, I think promotions or merit increases. I would say that's the exception, but you definitely need to do a sanity check.
Yes.
Right. Or salary integrity check across the organization. If for some reason that you do see Susan Smith is being paid 15K lower than John Doe, who's in the same job, then there's pay inequality. Right. And that's when you need to step up and fix it. Okay, wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. I think you mentioned Glassdoor as an area. So talk about that if you're interested in recruiting women for engineering roles. Yeah, so I think if think of Glassdoor as your Yelp. If you will, for services in restaurants, and so Glassdoor serves as a way for potential candidates or potential employees to go in and actually do a quick background check on your company, right? So on Glassdoor, there are reviews. I mean, those are, I would say most of the time, are very true. Whether people are happy or unhappy, that would go to Glassdoor to write about it. Right. So that's one portion of it. But Glassdoor also is a good way to use it. Now, you talked about LinkedIn, right? Yes. As the kind of the one tool that people normally use. I challenge that. Glassdoor is a good way to also market your jobs, your company, your product, and also getting talent. So one of the campaigns that I'm actually getting ready to launch again with Glassdoor is really targeting females in technology. And as we know, just women in technology in itself is scarce, right? So how do you promote? How do you reach them? And how do you promote your company in the right way for people to gravitate towards you if they are women? Right. So if you go on Glassdoor and you looked at Harness, we made it a point to make sure that women will feel comfortable coming into the organization. In fact, we are now, we had a company kickoff, and we are training north of 20% in terms of the female population, which for a small technology company, it's a great step in the right direction for us.
You're doing a great job then.
Again, it starts from filling the funnel with a diverse pool of candidates.
Yeah, but with certain metrics in mind that you've already set out, that you want to make sure you bring in a funnel of diverse talent to be considered, right? And that you're putting in place to make sure there is minimize any pay inequality.
Correct.
And all of the practices that you did at AppDynamics, you're applying it to the culture now at Harness.
Absolutely, and especially all the lessons learned, what to do and what not to do again. I think this time around, that's why I was saying earlier that we are, scaling, but we're scaling a lot faster. Because I think the second time around,
you can do a better job.
And we know what's around the corner.
And you're helping all of these startups that you're seeding also to try to get them on the right path when it comes to recruiting and retaining talent.
Yeah, it's so important because most of the time these are first-time founders and CEOs. They might have been involved in other organizations and just growing them, but they have never been the one growing their own startup. So our job is to educate them, or I shouldn't say educate, but to arm them with the right resources, information, for them to actually have a solid foundation from day one when it comes to thinking about growing the talent pool, right? Whether it's, again, when it comes to messaging, storytelling, to branding, right? Because employer branding is very different from employee branding. It's what people are gravitating towards your company that you should showcase, right? The personality that people are looking for in the company, the persona has to be there.
Excellent. I'm learning so much. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing all this.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure, and thank you for watching.
So Harness is hiring big time?
We are all across the globe. So if you're interested, please visit us on our website, harness.io.
There you have it. Take it up with Jessica Lee. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.